Thank you. Thank you, Linda. And thank you all for being here. Special thanks to First Presbyterian and to Bright Stars of Bethlehem for hosting this program. I'm so honored to be part of this panel, and particularly with my dear friend, Mitri. I've been looking forward to this opportunity to have this conversation. So I want to pick up on one of the threads that Mitri left us with, and that is the issue of solidarity, because I think one of the things that we are seeing in this movement of solidarity with Palestinians against the genocide in Gaza is a remarkable level of Jewish participation. Jewish Voice for Peace, which is an organization that I'm very, very involved in, and other organizations like If Not Now, have been mobilizing together with Palestinian partners and other allies on the ground almost from the beginning. And we've seen this presence. And I know personally, because of the work that I do, my congregation, Tzedek Chicago, is an avowedly anti-Zionist congregation. And I meet on a regular basis, particularly young Jews, not only, but particularly young Jews who have felt alienated from Jewish life because of the insistence of Jewish communal gatekeepers on putting Israel and Zionism at the center. And these are people who have a deep Jewish identity and a deep Jewish yearning, and understand that their sense of solidarity with oppressed peoples of all kinds, but including Palestinians, comes from a place of human conscience, but also deep Jewish conscience, and the Jewish values that they were taught in their families and in their religious schools. I meet them all the time. They send me emails all the time. I was just yesterday at DePaul. I was asked by Jews for Justice at DePaul, who have been part of the encampment there, very, very solid presence there. And they invited me and the cantor from my congregation to lead a Havdalah service, which is the Jewish service that ends the Sabbath, that ends Shabbat. And we did that, and there was a very visible presence of Jews among the crowd, hundreds and hundreds of people in this very amazing, peaceful display of solidarity. And afterwards, you may remember that there was a huge thunderstorm last night. Afterwards, the clouds were starting to gather, but I couldn't get away because so many young Jewish people came up to me and thanked us for doing this. More than one person said, we haven't done anything Jewish in a long, long time because we felt so alienated, and this is the first time I felt that I could display my Jewish identity publicly, and not only to be Jewish, but to do Jewish. And they were doing it right there at the DePaul encampment, at a place where so many leaders, so-called leaders, are saying that anti-Semitism is being expressed. I mean, one of the things I said last night was, I just want to tell you as a Jewish person, I feel perfectly safe here. And that probably got the biggest cheer of the evening. But it was true. It came from my heart. So I just want to let you know that the Jewish community is a very diverse place, like all communities. Yes, there are those who stand by Israel and support Israel and what Israel is doing. There are those who are deeply confused and are remaining silent and sitting on the fence because they're in great confusion and pain. But there is a surge of folks throughout North America, and I would imagine throughout the world, who out of their Jewish conscience are rising up in solidarity in this moment, out of a place of deep Jewish conviction and conscience. I know this because of the work I do every day. I want to address the issue of anti-Semitism because I think it is a weapon that is being wielded in a very cynical and destructive way toward those who are standing with Palestinians and showing solidarity with Palestinians. It's very, very important, if I could if there's anything you take away from my comments today, it is that Judaism and Zionism are two separate things. Much as there are those Jews who would like the world to conflate them and see them as irrevocably connected, Judaism is a centuries-old spiritual peoplehood that arose largely in the diaspora as we know it. Zionism is a political movement that started in the 19th century. It is not uniquely Jewish, as Mitri just pointed out, and it is in many ways a radical overturning of what it had meant to be Jewish up until that point. Zionism sought to create a Jewish majority nation state in historic Palestine. The idea of creating a sovereign Jewish state in that land for centuries was prohibited by Jewish tradition. The rabbis saw this as an anathema, that the third Jewish commonwealth, so-called, could only be established when the Messiah came. But in the meantime, we seek to repair the world in whatever communities we happen to live in. The land was very important, and it has always been very important in Jewish tradition. It's a mitzvah or a commandment to make pilgrimage there. So many of our holidays and our observances are connected to the land in many ways, and certainly through our connection to the Torah and the Hebrew Bible, there is a strong sense of grounding in the land. But the land for Jews for centuries was a spiritual concept, was a spiritual ideal. The idea of treating it in a concrete way as some kind of political solution was a radical overturning of what it meant to be Jewish up until that point. So when people say anti-Zionists are anti-Semites, that is an incorrect and often very disingenuous argument. And I can attest that there is a new generation of very proud Jews who define themselves as anti-Zionist, who, believe me, have a deep sense of Jewish identity and desire for Jewish safety and security, but understand that Jewish safety and security cannot be inseparable from the safety and security of all peoples. And that is the one thing about the establishment of the State of Israel. That is the one thing about the establishment of the State of Israel that we need to bear in mind. That Israel was established in 1948, although the Zionist movement advocating for a Jewish, as Mitri said, a settler colonial movement that advocated for a Jewish nation state in Palestine for a good 100 years before that. After the Holocaust, after the horrors of the Holocaust, there were Jewish refugees seeking a home. And it is to the world's shame that they were not allowed back to their homes or to other countries around the world. And the world should bear that shame. However, the solution to this issue was not to go into a land and dispossess another people, create a state on their backs, and thereby create what is today the largest refugee population in the world. That was an essential injustice, the Nakba, as the Palestinians refer to it, that has been ongoing ever since and has been at the root of this issue, this not a conflict that Mitri described. It didn't begin on October 7th. It didn't begin with the blockade of Gaza in 2006. It began with the ethnic cleansing of 750,000 Palestinians from their homes, Israel's refusal to allow them to return, and establishing a settler colonial state based on the identity of one particular group of people, and either turning Palestinians into refugees, into second-class citizens in 1948 Israel, or into people under military occupation in the West Bank after 1967. So if there's anything that we can carry forward from this, it's the notion that safety and security should not be zero-sum. It should not occur at the expense of another people. The only way we are going to find our way forward is to understand that solidarity is a very sacred value. And I see solidarity not only as a political tactic, but as a religious value, as a Jew and as a person of conscience. You know, we just finished the holiday of Passover in the Jewish community, and the action at the Gaza border that Linda was referring to was a Passover action that was using the sacred imperative of the Passover Seder, the signature moment of the Passover Seder, all who are hungry come and eat. And together with our fellow rabbis from Rabbis for Ceasefire, we really agreed that we couldn't say these words around the Seder table without acknowledging that a state in the name of Jews everywhere is starving another population as a weapon of war in an ongoing genocide. And so that we needed to go there and say these words there. That was the only way that we could make Passover truly honest and meaningful. And so that was, that was at the heart of what we were doing. We were using understanding our own Jewish tradition as a sacred tool of empathy and solidarity with the Palestinian people. It was one of the most remarkable Passovers I think I've ever experienced. There were many Jews in the Jewish community, and maybe some Jewish people here can attest to this, who were thinking when Passover came around, I'm not sure how I'm going to celebrate this holiday this year. There are a lot of us saying we're not quite sure how to be Jewish, in such circumstances. And I think the answer, as ever, has always been through solidarity. That is ultimately going to be the way forward, not just for the Jewish community, but for all of us. That safety, security, and creating the kind of world that we want to see, what we call in Judaism, olam haba, the world to come, needs to make room for all. It has to be all of us or none. So thank you all for your presence here. I take by your presence here that you share this vision and these values, and it's an honor to be part of this community of solidarity as we go forward.